Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem Racha Kodash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is You Have Entered into Other Men's Labors. And pretty much this lesson was inspired by something that came to mind last night. I'm not sure if I was half asleep or what the case was, but a thought came into my mind, actually a picture of a framed wall. And when it came to mind, like I said, I don't know if I was half asleep, and I just started thinking about, a wall itself, and how it's framed, most people, when they see a home or apartment or whatever the case may be, they're not looking at what's behind, all of the either plaster or sheetrock. They're just there because they're oblivious to that type of work. Unless you've actually worked in it, you won't really think about it. But what you're looking at here are pretty much pictures of frames. And pretty much in framing and construction is pretty much the skeleton of a building, whether it's wood, whether it's metal, aluminum, whatever the case may be. And pretty much that's what it is. Now, when we look up the word, this is an actual wall with door and window. When you look at the word framing itself, it says the act, process, or manner of constructing anything. The act of providing with a frame or a system of framework. And that's pretty much what you see there. It's a framework. Now, when I saw the picture in my mind, you can see here's another picture. These four men are lifting up an actual wall that was already made. You lay out your studs, you lay out your cripplers on top and bottoms of windows. You have your door openings, your window openings, so on and so forth. These are cripplers up here, and then you have cripplers down here. And pretty much, they're not making any adjustments to this. They're just lifting it up to get it in place, and to get it ready for for another wall. Now, what you have also, you have something called prefabbed walls or prefabricated walls. And prefabricated walls are walls that already come made to the specifics of wherever it's going to go. And when you have a prefab wall, as you see these two men here have, all they're doing is putting these things in place. They're not making any adjustments to it. They're just bringing it, putting it in place because it's already made to the specifications of this particular building. All right. And that's pretty much what we're doing in this truth. Everything has already been prefabricated, and in prefabrication, there is no need to do anything to it but just to assemble, and that's the point of this truth, that we, like the name of the lesson is, you have entered into other men's labors. And that's what we have done. We have entered into other men's labors, and we are not supposed to be trying to alter that labor. All we're doing is just, adding to the labor, or we're complementing that labor. All right. Like I said, you have these prefabbed doors and prefabbed walls, and all these men are doing is just slapping them up, level, plumb, square, and move to the next one, slap that up. Before you know it, the building is all put in place, as you see here. This is a prefab building that they actually just slapped the walls up that were already made, and then see how they got the roof already made, and the crane is letting the roof down. And once it gets in place, they get it where it needs to be and tack it down, and that's it. All right. So that's pretty much where we're at in this truth. Now, this truth is like carpentry, because there is a building going on, and there is there is a way, there is an art form, a way in which building is done. You know, you have to begin from the ground up. The ground has to be perfect for it. You know, within the ground, you have to dig into the ground to build your foundation. You know, and then once the foundation is sure, secure, and everything is in place, then you begin, you know, with the building. And the very first thing you would do in that building is you would take what they call a 2x12, about 4 or 5 of them stacked together, you know, of course staggered, you know, depending on how long the building is. And what that would do is that would go in the center of the building, and it will go inside of the actual foundation, and there would be pockets on each side of the foundation to carry that particular beam, because that is the weight beam. You know, so it's a load-bearing beam. And then once that beam was in place, you could begin, you know, your building. You know, and usually what would happen is once that's done and they start the building, someone would go downstairs in the basement, and depending on how long the building is, they would put something called lolly columns every so far, maybe like every 8 feet. They'll put a lolly column up, you know, and it would be like a metal pole filled with cement, you know, and pretty much that would carry the weight of that beam also, so that it won't, you know, sag down. You know, so it's a whole lot to it. So there's tools and skilled laborers that have to, you know, get down and dirty, you know, to make that building, you know, work, you know. And then most people, they just see the finished product. They don't see all of the labor that goes into making this. So we have here in the book of Isaiah 29:16, it says, "Surely your turning of things upside down shall be esteemed as a potter's clay," dealing with Esau and the way he turned everything upside down. But this is the point here. It says, "For shall the work say of him that made it, he made me not?" Because who ultimately caused Esau to do that? The Most High did. So the work, which is Esau, can't say that the Most High didn't make him such, because the Most High is the one that made him. Then it says, "Or shall the thing framed say of him that framed it, he had no understanding?" Right? Because here it is, you have a frame, and the person that made this frame had an understanding. So this particular wall can't say to these men, "You didn't make me. You didn't have no understanding," because everything is perfect. There you have your wall, you have your door opening, your window openings. And once you get this in place, you know, and get the house all together, then the people that do the windows will come in and do their thing, put the windows in, put the doors in, so on and so forth. So when we look up this word framed here, when we scroll down, framed is the word yatazar. And the word yatazar means form, framing, purpose, framework. So it's a framework. So we are also working on a framework, but it's a spiritual framework, because right now the Lord is building up the tabernacles of David, all right, which is a spiritual house, which we're going to get into that, Lord's will, you know. And you have laborers working to build this building. You know, you have laborers that are just, you know, ones that mix the mortar, or they handing the different materials, you know, to the head carpenter, which would be known as a foreman, or as the scriptures call it, a wise master builder, as the Apostle Paul mentioned in 1 Corinthians 3:10. It says, "According to the grace of the Most High, which is given unto me, as what? A wise master builder, I have laid the foundation." Why? Because you have a foundation. Every building has to have a foundation. Yahushua is that foundation. You know, and when you're building upon a foundation that's already established, you have to be careful to build upon that foundation according to the way that this particular, individual's name who's on this building, wants it. You see? Because you have some shabby or shoddy, builders. You have some, halfway builders. You have some decent builders. And then you have those that are very, that take great pride in their work. And this building that we're building is a building that's a building of very great pride and very meticulous. Everything has to be perfect. So it says, and another buildeth thereon, but let every man take heed how he buildeth thereupon. For other foundation can no man lay than that is laid, which is Yahushai Hamashiach. Now, when we look at this word here, wise, which Sophos or Sophia, master builder. Now, the word master builder is a compound word, architecton. Archi is like, the head or the beginning, as you can see here, beginning, principality, corner, first. And then you have the word tecton, which is carpenter. So architecton basically breaks down to the head carpenter or the head architect, because an architect, even though he's just drawing a building, he has to know how buildings operate. So he has to be like a wise master builder in order to be able to put his vision of a particular building together, because he has to know, weight bearing. He has to know, the effect of, when you have such a building so long, it has to have certain particulars in it in order so that the building doesn't collapse within itself. So he has to know all of these, little, I guess you could say, for lack of better words, innuendos of that particular, art. So architecton is a master builder and architect, the superintendent in the erection of buildings. All right, an architect. Now, I've heard this before, where they said that the Lord Yahushai, his father being a carpenter, he was really a stonemason. But I mean, from the word tecton, which sounds like tectonic plate, I don't really get that sense, because it just says carpenter. I know I've looked over it before, but I don't really remember how it was that we went about finding that information. It says a worker in wood, a carpenter, joiner, builder. See, a ship's carpenter or builder, any craftsman or workman, the art of poetry, maker of songs. Yeah, because you have, and when you're making songs, it's pretty much you're building. You're building together. A planner, contriver, plotter, and author. Let's see right here. It says teoria, which means punishment. I don't understand that one. Okay, and it goes on to speak about Yahushai being, is not this the carpenter, the son of Mary, the brother of James and Joses and Judah and Simon, and are not his sisters with us? And they were offended at him, right? Because they grew up with him, they knew of him, so they didn't really, respect him as being a prophet or being a son of the Most High. Okay? So that's a wise master builder, architecton, or an architect. And this is what we're doing here. We have a building that the Lord is causing us to build. Everything is already laid out. The blueprint is laid out. You can't come into a established, building and start changing the blueprints. You are not the author of those blueprints. You cannot change those blueprints. You could only fall in line and help build, or get the hell out the way. All right. So let's see what else we got here. Framework. And that's what we have here. Surely your turning of things upside down shall be esteemed as a potter's clay. For shall the work say of him that made it, he made me not? Or shall the thing framed say of him that framed it, he had no understanding? All right, so we've dealt with 1 Corinthians. Now let's go to 2 Kings 22:1. This is dealing with Josiah when he came to the throne. Josiah was 8 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 31 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Jedidah, the daughter of Adiah of Boskath. And he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord, and walked in all the way of David his father, and turned not aside to the right hand or to the left. And it came to pass in the 18th year of King Josiah that the king sent Shaphan, the son of Azaliah, the son of Meshullam, the scribe, to the house of the Lord, saying, Go up to Hilkiah, the high priest, that he may sum the silver which is brought into the house of the Lord, which the keepers of the doors have gathered of the people, and let them deliver it into the hand of the doers of the work. See? So this particular sum of money, silver and whatever the case was given to those that were doing the work. For what purpose? To continue doing the work. That have the oversight of the house of the Lord. Right? Because there are specifics on how to build the house of the Lord. And you had certain men that were given skill directly from Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai on how to build these things. When you see, because you had wood engravers, metal engravers, and all this back then. Those men were skilled in that way because the Most High gave them that skill. And in engraving, that is a very hard skill, because it takes a lot of discipline. It takes a lot of patience. You have to be very meticulous. You have to be very proud of your work. Right? It says, and let them give it to the doers of the work, which is in the house of the Lord, to repair the breaches of the house. Now, this is dealing with actual building. The doers of the work with the actual building. But today we know that we're dealing with a spiritual building. It says, unto carpenters and builders and masons, and to buy timber and hewn stone to repair the house. Now let's look up this word carpenters. You have the word charash, which is craftsman, artisan, engraver, graver, artificer, skillful to destroy. This going into something else. But in carpentry, there are different levels of carpentry. This right here would be known as rough framing. This is rough work. Pretty much anybody could do this. This is rough work. Then you have the finished work. The finished work would be once everything was in place, the walls were in place, electrical and the water and, plumbing and all that, everything was in place, the heating system, whatever you need in there. Then the sheetrock, everything was in place, taped, painted, everything was done. Then you would have someone come in, which were finished carpenters. Now these are men with more finesse and more skill. They put in, the baseboards. They put in the crown molding. Depending on what the people want. How fancy the place is. The chair rails. They put in the stairs and all of the fancy stuff. And that took a lot of skill and patience. Okay. So Karash, which is the carpenter. Then we have the word builders, which is the word bana, which the word bana means to build. To build, rebuild, establish, cause to continue. Then you had the word masons, which is the word gadar. The wall up, wall off, close off, build the wall, to wall up, shut off, masons. All right. Which were stonemasons, usually stonemasons. All right. So these were the doers of the work that were given what? Sums of money to do these, to repair this, right? And it says here, howbeit there was no reckoning made with them of the money that was delivered into their hand, right? Because usually everything was done in writing, just in case the individual tried to get slick and make off with the money. Because they dealt faithfully. So what is the point of the matter here? That the men that are set up to do this work have to be faithful to do the work, and that is, and not just faithful in doing the work, but faithful in keeping the work, the way it's supposed to be, the way it was delivered to them, not deviating from the plan, because you have laborers that come into this thing and they try to build, their own thing. When the brother had that dream where he was writing the name of the apostles on the boxes, it had Yahushai's name printed on every last one of those boxes. Because Yahushai is that foundation that we're building upon. You see? So going on, 1 Peter 2:4, it says, to whom coming as unto a living stone, who is a living stone? Yahushai is that living stone. Disallowed indeed of men, which were those carnal men, wicked Pharisees, Sadducees, and them, common folk that denied him, one of his disciples, so on and so forth. But it says, disallowed indeed of men, but chosen of the Most High and precious, because he is that precious cornerstone. You also as lively stones are built up a spiritual house and holy priesthood, to offer up spiritual sacrifices acceptable to the Most High by Yahushai. So what we're doing right now in building the spiritual temple, there are spiritual sacrifices that are offered to the Lord. So every time we speak this word, it's that sweet savor of that sacrifice. When you read 2 Corinthians, the 2nd chapter, it says, wherefore also it is contained in the scripture, behold, I lay in Zion, Israelites, got that vocab? A chief cornerstone. Who is this chief cornerstone? Yahushai, which is what? He is the Son of the Most High. He is the Savior of the nation of Israel. Elect, because he was elected from before the world was even created. Precious, because his blood is the most precious. And he that believeth on him shall not be confounded. So he is that chief cornerstone, the foundation that is set up for this building of this sacrificial temple. Let's go from there. Let's go to the book of St. John chapter 3 and St. John chapter 4 verse 34. Yahushua saith unto them, my meat is to do the will of him that sent me and to finish his work. Because we are laborers in this. Say not ye, there are yet 4 months, and then cometh harvest. Right, because a lot of Jakes, they like to wait to the last minute. One thing about Jake are the biggest procrastinators on the planet. Out of all nations, Jake are the biggest procrastinators. If they know they have a little time frame, they're not going to make a move until the very last minute. It is a fact. Jake are the biggest procrastinators on the planet. Trust me, I know. They wait to the very last minute possible to do something. It says, behold, I say unto you, lift up your eyes and look on the fields, for they are white already to harvest. So don't be waiting to do the work. Just do the work. Get into it, get involved. And he that reapeth receiveth the wages. Right, because if you don't reap, you don't receive wages. And gathereth fruit unto life eternal. And that's why we're laboring. To receive fruit or gather fruit unto life eternal, that both he that soweth and he that reapeth may rejoice together. Yeah, because we will receive a reward if we endure to the end. And herein is that saying true, one soweth and another reapeth. I sent you to reap wherein you bestow no labor. Other men labored, and you are entered into their labors. That's why the Apostle Paul said. He said in 1 Corinthians 3:11, for other foundation can no man lay than that is laid, which is Yahushua. That's why he says, but let every man take heed how he buildeth thereupon. For other foundation can no man lay than that which is laid, which is Yahushua. That's why Yahushua has, the name of Yahweh Bashem Yahushua stamped on this, particular, teaching. All right. So moving on, there are men set up to do these things. Zechariah 4:10. For who have despised the day of small things? For they shall rejoice and shall see the plummet in the hand of Zerubbabel with those 7, because the Lord said that Zerubbabel started, he's going to finish. And those of you that can receive it, Zerubbabel would be King David. He would be Jacob. He would be Peter, which is King Masha. We believe this through faith. The name Zerubbabel means destroyer of Babylon. And shall see the plummet in the hand of Zerubbabel. Because you have to have a leader, someone that leads the charge. You have Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. They set up a man by the name of Abba Bivens. He set the work forward, picked three men, King Masha, High Priest Arya, High Priest Jaquab. And the head of those 3 men was King Masha. Is King Masha. He's just sleeping right now in the spirit world. It says, with those 7, they are the eyes of the Lord, which run to and fro to the whole earth, which are what? The angels. Because the angels are working with us. Remember, the angels are, ministers to those that are heirs of the kingdom of heaven. Now, when we look up this word plummet, right? The word there is abun, which means stone, right? And then you have the word right here, root word bana, which means to build. And this stone is a stone of building. It says stone, larger, small, common stone, and natural state stone as a material or tablets, so on and so forth. You could read on, there's a whole lot here. But a plummet or a plumb line, as you see here, is set up to make sure that everything is perfect. If you're trying to find your center, right, you would use a plumb line, and wherever that plumb line will stop, that's what you will mark for your center. All right, that would be either your starting point or your finishing point, or whatever the case may be, whatever it is that you're doing to make sure that it's perfect. All right, and the Lord uses these examples in the scriptures because the scriptures are a measuring stick. It's a rod, it's a measuring stick, it's a plummet, it's a level, it's everything needed for building. All right. So when we go on to Isaiah 28:17, judgment also will I lay to the line. A line is also that, because when you're building, you need lines. After you finish building the foundation, you don't just begin to build. You have to square that. You have to make sure that foundation is square. Otherwise, your building is going to come out all messed up. So what you would normally do is you would take the way something was squared. Let's say we're trying to square this wall here without, any fancy shit. We would measure from one corner to the next corner. Then from this corner back to the other corner. And if those two numbers match, then you would nail that in place so that it won't move, because that is square. Because when you have a wall like this, the reason for squaring it, this would be laying down on the ground. The reason for squaring it is so that you can sheath it. As you can see these pieces of wood out here, that's the sheathing, the outside wall. And that would hold it in place. And you would let it hang down a little bit, whether it be a 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch, an inch, 2 inches, 15 inches, depending on how far the floor or the other floor or the floor beneath you goes down, so that you can use that to nail it to the outer rim. All right. So that's what you would do. So that's how you would know that this would be square. If you measure from each corner, one corner to another, and one corner to another, and the numbers match exactly, then you're good. If it's a 1/2 inch off, guess what? You would move this down a little bit, about a 1/4 inch, and you would remeasure. And you keep that process up until you get the exact number. And that's how it's squared. So judgment also will I lay to the line, and righteousness to the plummet. And the hail shall sweep away the refuge of lies, right? Because the Lord is going to cause things to happen to get rid of all of that leaven, all of the bullshit, all of the stuff that don't belong to the Lord is going to sweep it away. And the waters shall overflow the hiding place. That's why it says if you build your fountain. Matter of fact, let's get that. That is a very good scripture. Let's go to Matthew. A very basic, fundamental building block scripture. Matthew chapter 7, verse 24. It says the two foundations, see? Because you have the right foundation and the wrong foundation. Therefore, whosoever heareth these sayings of mine is given you what? Instruction. And doeth them, I will liken him unto a wise man which what? Which built, see, his house upon a rock. You have the word build and plummet and line and measure and so on and so forth. And who is their rock? Yahushai. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat upon that house, and it fell not, for it was founded upon a rock. You see? But in the case of this other individual here, it says that the hail is going to sweep the refuge of lies, and waters shall overflow the hiding place. It says, and everyone that heareth these sayings of mine and doeth them not, he is not a worker, he is not a laborer, he's a shiesty, shiftless individual, shall be likened unto a foolish man, which built his house upon the sand. So he did build, but he did some shabby building. He said, you know what? I know how, they saying do it this way, but now I'm gonna do it my way. All right, I'm gonna do it my way. We building this my way. And guess what? And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat upon that house, and it fell. And great was the fall of it. Why? Because it was not built upon that rock, upon Yahushai. Because no other foundation can man build than that which is built. And that foundation is Yahushai. Right? So moving on. Isaiah 44:13. The carpenter stretcheth out his rule. Let's look up the word rule. Because you have a measuring tape. This is the Hebrew word quan, cord, line, measuring line, right? So you had lines. Today you have these lines, these measuring tapes that have, inches, 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of, whatever, 1/4 of an inch. You have foot, 16 feet, whatever. And back then they had it, but they would just use the line. And that would establish the measurement of, okay, how far this is. This is a furlong, so on and so forth. They had the different measurements back then. Cord, measuring line. Metapoetic mimicry of Isaiah's words. Just going into something else, perhaps senseless. It's going into something else. All right. So it says, the carpenter stretcheth out his rule. He maketh it out with a line. Let's look at this word line. Sharad. Stylus, a line, marker, a marking tool for wood. Scribing all. Right. So you have to make your measurement, right? Those you brothers that do carpentry, you take your measurement, and what do? You don't just say, okay, this is where 5 feet is at. No, 5 feet, and you would mark it with your pencil or whatever. That's how you do it with this truth. It says he fitteth it with planes. Now, those of you brothers that have ever installed doors, sometimes a door might be rubbing because the frame or the opening where you're putting this in is an existing opening, and it might not be square. So what you would have to do is, once the frame is installed, you would have to, because the door is scraping, so you would have to take a plane and plane that corner off of the door until, you had the right reveal, until it shuts and opens easily without rubbing. And then what you would do afterwards, you would paint that section, of the door, and it would be as if though you never did anything to the door. All right. He fitteth it with planes, and he marketh it out with the compass. So these are all like tools that we're doing, when we building this house, and maketh it after the figure of a man. This is dealing with building actually, an idol or something like that. But the point is that the carpenters would have their tools for building according to the beauty of a man, that it may remain in the house. So pretty much this is what the job of the carpenters were. So we being spiritual carpenters, that's what we're doing. We're building the house of the Lord. All right. And every room has to be meticulous. All right. Yep. Like the brother said, the hinges aren't all the way screwed through. Yeah. Because, you have to, everything has to be correct. Then the other brother said, this is like the hallmark, I guess, for lack of better words. Measure twice, cut once, and that's the truth. It's better to measure twice and to cut once than to cut twice, measure once and cut twice. So in other words, you would measure, and just to be sure, you would measure again, because sometimes in carpentry you would measure something, and you'll go back after you cut it, and it might be an inch too short. That's that inch, or an inch too long. But usually it would be an inch too short. And, if it's too long, then that's cool because you could recut it. But if it's an inch too short, then that's wasted. You might be able to use it somewhere else. So measure twice, cut once. That is one of the golden rules. It says, and make it that. So that's pretty much it on that. We read about Yahushua being the carpenter. There was another precept that just came to mind that I thought I had. Damn. I just forgot it too. Oh, okay. I got them written down. Let's go to 1 Peter. We already read 1 Peter. Let's go to the last precept I have here. Ephesians chapter 2. Okay, Ephesians chapter 2. I started 19. Now therefore you are no more strangers and foreigners. Why? Because now you're brought back to the fold of Israel, you Israelite foreigners, but fellow citizens with the saints. Yeah, because the other nations were never citizens or fellow citizens with the saints. The saints are Israelites. And of the household of the Most High, because you are Israelites. The household of the Most High, the people of the Most High are the Israelites, and are built upon the foundation of the apostles and prophets. Yahushua himself being the chief cornerstone. Yeah, because there was a measuring stick, so to speak, that was set up, a standard that was set up on what to follow, a blueprint set up to follow. And that's why they called it what? Yahushua's doctrine. They called it, the apostles' doctrine. You intend to, fill Jerusalem with your doctrine. So there was an actual teaching or instruction guide on how to build, in whom all the building fitly framed together groweth unto an holy temple in the Lord. So that's why you had to have all of the right building materials, so it could be jointly fit together. Because if you have a puzzle, I don't care if the puzzle if the one piece looks like it belongs in that area, if it doesn't fit, you must have quit. Inside joke. But if it doesn't fit, then you can't use it. Doesn't matter how close it may seem, because sometimes you try to push and you'll push it in there. It kind of fits, but it really doesn't, because it didn't snap in place. So everything has to be tight. All right, sunar mologeho. So now that's a mouthful. To join closely together, to frame together. See, parts of what? A building. Like you have here, these parts of a building are put together. Like we have here in these prefab buildings, you know, where everything was slapped together perfectly. You know, you can see out there in the distance, these walls are already up. You can see here that these walls are about to be put into place to look like that, fitly framed together. The members of the body. Right. So it says, in whom all the building fitly framed together groweth unto an holy temple in the Lord, in whom ye also are builded together for an habitation of the Most High through the Spirit. That's why it says that we are the temple of the Most High. And the Spirit of the Lord dwelleth in us. That's why Yahushua said, where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there am I in the midst. Okay? So with that, you know, pretty much, I think that's a good spot we could leave it at. You have entered into other men's labors. You know, with that, I pray that you brothers and few sisters have been edified. To the next time I say shalom.